calling on students randomly elevates their responsibility for the thinking and the cognition in the room. It's always effective to have students write before they're asked to share, and this way everyone has an answer, everyone has something written down to refer to, and that creates a level of comfort in the conditions for effective cold calling.
We have been studying about the early peoples that lived in Colorado, right?
My main goal with the whiteboards is just to get them to think about the text, to think about what we're reading, because we're talking about ancient cultures in Colorado, thinking about like what life was like compared to what our life was like. And so the whiteboard gives me a chance to just make sure that they're being held accountable for paying attention.
Okay, page 52, tracking with me. Food and tools. Over time, ancestral Puebloans proved better.
I read the text out loud to them while they were supposed to be tracking along. One of the big standards we're working on in Colorado history is like how people have adapted the land.
Okay, on your whiteboard, skimming back over that paragraph we just read, what's one thing that the ancestral Puebloans were doing to make their lives easier? Now,
I was mostly just asking like just basic comprehension questions today.
Okay, show me the boards.
And they just know they're supposed to flip it up and show me the whiteboard. They give me a really quick idea of who is paying attention and who is not.
Ashton, what's one detail you wrote about Pueblos?
Pueblo is made of mud and stone.
Nice job, Pueblos.
And also help me think about, okay, where do we need to go with this?
Some were 2 and 3 stories high.
One of the things you saw this particular teacher do is have the students answer foundational questions on their whiteboards. She was able to direct their thinking to the to-be-remembered content of that lesson, and then the students used the content they had included on their whiteboards to answer more sophisticated questions that might ask them to use their own ideas along with what they had read in the text.
Caden, why did the Pueblo people decide to farm?
Because they didn't want to go gather
And also what?
and hunt.
They didn't want to have to spend all their time
Cold calling gives me a chance to just ask a question that goes a little bit deeper often. The whiteboard allows the student to have something to hook their answer to. They don't just feel like they're pulling an answer out of thin air. They've got something on the whiteboard that they can explain.
They dug like this place to like whenever they didn't get their water at that certain time.
When every student has a whiteboard on which to formulate his or her own response, we have an opportunity for accountability, for thinking, from every single learner. It's beneficial because the student can refer to what they've written individually to share with the class what it is that they want to say as they answer the teacher's question.
Nice job, Christian. Fishing? They did do fishing, good job.